Kevin Owens all of a sudden deciding that he hates Texas. And okay, he hates Texas. He's from Canada. You know, I'm sure he'd take anywhere in Canada over anywhere in the US or the UK or Germany or France or Australia, because you know he's proud of where he's from. Good for him. All of a sudden, he really hates Texas, and he decides he wants to beat up a Texan. And there's a lot of Texans who've wrestled for WWE in the past, and I assume there's a lot of Texans still wrestling for WWE. But as soon as you drop the name, and again, we'd already been fed this by Meltzer, by Alvarez, by Wade Keller, Sean Ross Sapp. Everyone was saying it's going to be Steve Austin. Originally, they said it's going to be a match. But then they dialed it back and they said, no, it's not going to be a match. It's going to be an encounter, an interview, an episode of the KO show. And I think that was done because maybe up until 1 or 2 days before, maybe Steve Austin wasn't too sure. There was a bit of talk. Could Steve Austin really commit to actually doing a match? And I mean, hey, you saw the result. The match they had was very basic. It was very simple. Austin started slow, which you'd expect when you haven't been in the ring for 20 years. You know, we're not expecting, fist and fire, piston-like right hands straight out the gate. Once he got his feet under him, apart from, more or less wrestling in his street clothes, you wouldn't know the difference. You would not know the difference. Steve Austin competing in 2022 should be the biggest story of 2022. But by now, at the end of the year, like I say, we are doing this because of a scheduling issue. We are doing the year review episode in November. But as things stand, usually December is quite a quiet time in the wrestling business. And I'm sure once this drops, I'm sure something really big will happen, which will totally date and make this podcast irrelevant. Such is life. However, Steve Austin coming back was fantastic. For those of us who lived through the Austin era and saw it in real time, there was nothing like watching Monday Night Raw on a Friday, as it was in the UK, 10 o'clock on Friday evening. Me and my friends, even at the age we were at where Friday night should have been about going out and partaking in alcoholic beverages and meeting up with some young ladies and just generally doing what teenagers do, everything stopped at 10 p.m. on a Friday evening because we knew Steve Austin was going to be there to cause some carnage, usually on Vince McMahon. For us, for those of us of that generation, that was a seminal moment in professional wrestling to see Steve Austin lace up the boots one more time. And to fast forward to now, Triple H apparently has offered Steve Austin another match. I mean, he's gone from being the one guy who never came out of retirement, and I mean, at this point, he's gonna have the same schedule as Brock. If he goes to WrestleMania, I did mention on the first podcast episode 0, I did mention that I would be going, and I am going to Los Angeles to watch WrestleMania 39. There is every possibility that The Rock could wrestle on that show. There's every possibility that John Cena could wrestle on that show. But now there's a possibility that Steve Austin could wrestle on that show. If WWE manages to pull this off, I'm going to have to send Triple H a fruit basket or some thank you note or something, because, I mean, that's your sellout right there. That's 2 nights of a sellout right there. Those 3 names sells out your building for 2 nights. Everything else is just window dressing, and that is no knock on the current roster. It's just back in the day, it was a different time. There wasn't so much choice for people to watch, to entertain themselves. There wasn't as much content freely available as there is now. So a Steve Austin was always going to have more eyeballs on him than a Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns, unfortunately for him, because him as a character now, it's one of the best pieces of character work that have been seen in WWE in a long time. Roman Reigns is in a world where the content and the way we consume content is so fragmented. He gets a tiny percentage as the top guy in the business that a Steve Austin would have done, or The Rock. And even Cena, who was a generation after Austin and The Rock. There was a bit of crossover, but Cena and The Rock and Steve Austin were, for lack of a better term, they were big stars in like the analog world, the analog generation, where the internet wasn't what it is today. There wasn't a YouTube in 2004. There wasn't a streaming service anywhere in 2004. The streaming wasn't a thing. It was pay-per-view and it was television. They were television and pay-per-view megastars. Roman Reigns is a megastar on SmackDown, which is on Fox in America, BT Sport in the UK. He's a premium live event star. He's a WWE Network star. He's a star on WWE's YouTube show. He appears for interviews on other YouTube channels. So, although he probably covers more, Roman Reigns I'm talking about, he probably covers more avenues in terms of YouTube, streaming, television, podcasts, etc. It's also fragmented, and the WWE is not in the same position now as it was 25 years ago. It's not in the upper echelon of people's minds. I have gone on a bit of a tangent about this, but again, going back to my original point, Roman Reigns, just because of how the world is, could never be as much of a visible superstar as The Rock, as Cena, as Steve Austin. That is why those 3 people on any card, those 3 guys, if they're all on the card for WrestleMania 39, that's your sellout right there. I'll be there. Me and my friends will be there. But that is your sellout. That sells out whatever tickets are remaining, and that gets your views on streaming services, on Peacock, WWE Network, regular pay-per-view. That's a bonanza for the WWE. So, but that's next year. Going back to 2022, Steve Austin comes out of retirement, has a match. Us older folks are happy. The people who've anecdotally heard about Steve Austin, they get to see what all the fuss is about. Still can't deny the man's star power after 20 years. Kevin Owens, for his part, did fantastic. He had to carry the entire feud prior to WrestleMania, and great credit to him. It's never easy doing a 2-man program on your own